Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Rebecca Skeele, and I am the host of Wisdom School TV. And welcome to the season finale. I really like saying that, of this season one of this Wisdom School TV channel. I'm just going to take a moment here and just type in the chat for everyone. And let me go over here and say welcome. Okay, there you go. So as you join this broadcast live, if you'd like to place your name and where you're from in the chat, I'd love to say hello. Wisdom School TV has been dedicated over the last year to bringing you programs and guests who speak about these times that we're walking through in a larger way, if you will, in the bigger reality. These have been conversations that I have wanted to have with guests. I have wanted to have with you. I have wanted to bring forward not only information and tips and tools, but also new ways of looking at you and who you are, as well as these times that we're walking through. So that has been my intention. The way that I've put it is that we are speaking our new world into reality. You're going to hear my guest a little later really talk about what that is in her very articulate way, very wise way of talking about these times. But before I bring on my guest today, I thought what I would do is walk you through some of my past shows. I began this as an experiment 12 months ago because the conversations that I wanted to have were not being heard out there. I wasn't hearing them. I wasn't able to really hear what I wanted to know about and hear about. So I began this as an experiment for my Wisdom School, Heaven on Earth Wisdom School, which I teach. And so I've picked my guests very specifically over the last month, and the programs that I've done have been very specific as to what I really wanted to bring forward. So I put together a little slideshow here to talk about the guests that I've had on and the programs that I've had on. So let me bring that up now. So, season one of Wisdom School TV. I want to say that my first three guests that I brought forward I've wanted them on the show not only because of the information that they hold and the wisdom that they talk about and their particular perspective and what the themes, but also the energy or the vibration of who they are. One of the things I've done over the last 25 years in my life is that I have exposed myself and been around people who carry a very high vibration. And because of that, I've wanted to inform myself and teach that part of me how to begin to up-level myself, uplift myself. And I think that's very important right now in definitely what we're walking through. Hi, Mary. Welcome. I know you've been on Wisdom School TV before, so glad you could join us today. So one of the first people I had, actually it was my first show, was I had Saima on, Her Holiness Saima. She talked about enlightened parent, enlightened child. And it's really quite a lovely show if you have not watched it. There was quite a few comments and questions from the chat. And Saima has really beautiful energy. So if you are not familiar with her, I really welcome you to watch this show. If you're a parent, you will definitely want to watch this show. Or if you know of someone who's a parent, that pretty much covers just about everybody. Michael Hayes was a guest that I had on early on this last year, and his program was called Exploring the Path of love and light in these uncertain times. I consider Michael to be a spiritual counselor of very high regard, and he accesses wisdom from very high places. Let me just put it that way. So his perspective on these uncertain times, what a path of light and love is full of a lot of upliftment and light and love. And again, this was a very interactive program, lots of people on the chat asking questions. So that was his program. Then my next guest was Dr. John Morton, who is the spiritual director of MSIA. And we talked about money and spirituality. We talked about wealth and abundance and riches from a spiritual perspective. And then we got pretty practical in this show. And again, there was a lot of interaction with the chat as far as questions to John and his sharing of his perspective about spirituality and money. We went all kinds of places in this particular show and had a good time talking with John. I thought I'd bring myself back up so you all could see me. Hello, Helen from New York City. Welcome. Welcome. Love to see you here. And by the way, if you're joining me in the middle of me doing a recap of this last year's season 1, please enter your name and where you're from. Love to say hello. So again, the first 3 programs were about specific issues that I wanted to talk about, as well as with people that I wanted to talk about them with, if that makes sense. Okay, what was next? Let's see, what did I put up here next? Reality Creation and Beyond. This is Frederick Dodson. A lot of people know who he is. A lot of people do not. If you've never read any of his books, Reality Creation, he is a person, I believe, who has done such a incredible job of explaining how to loosen our grip on this 5-sense reality that we're all very conditioned around. And basically that means this reality of sight, touch, smell, taste, and hearing. This is key to begin to open up to the greater reality of who you are. I talk a lot about this, and I have talked a lot about this over the last year. And this is one of the major things I teach in my Heaven on Earth Wisdom School. So I wanted to have Fred on as a guest. He actually lives in Germany. So this particular video is not great quality. It was one of the ones that I was really sorry the quality wasn't so good. But I also learned my lesson. I videotaped him during Mercury in retrograde. Won't do that again. So if you bear with the interview, though, you'll be able to hear him and his wisdom. But if you're interested in how to begin to let go of reality, and specifically I want to say that the reality that is so conditioned is fear. It's fear-based. And how we begin to open up more to the higher realities of light and love and expansiveness and growth and soul is we must begin to loosen our grip on this one. So he has a lot of tips and tools about that. Hello, Kit. Welcome to Wisdom School TV. So nice to see you here. Yes, I know. It's a very exciting interview coming up in just a moment. I did 3 particular shows, or they were actually series that I did over this last year. The one I want to talk about is the one that I did at the beginning of 2013. Are you in a time of spiritual emergence? I believe we are all in a time of spiritual emergence. So what I did on this 3-part series was give you the case studies of people I've worked with, tell you stories about people I worked with, actually give you statistics of the results of working with people, and so that you could listen to these 3 shows and go, wow, I think I'm in a time of spiritual emergence. Or, well, it didn't quite show up like that for me, but maybe it's like this for me. So this was really for you to begin to take a look at your own life from a different point of view. again, and more expansive, a bigger point of view. So that is also, you'll find that three-part series in the archives. And then the previous show to this one, the one that I did earlier this month, was a show that I did around a workshop that I'm actually going to be leading in England next month called Co-Creating a New Reality with the Crop Circles. And I named the show How Big is Your Reality? Because quite honestly, when you expose yourself to crop circles and walk in them, your reality shifts. And these two lovely ladies will be joining me during my workshop in June. Karen Alexander is the one to the right, and Helen Carrison is the one to the left. Karen is one of the foremost authorities on crop circles. She's been studying for 3 decades. And I'm thrilled that she's going to be joining me during my workshop. And Helen lives in Belgium, but she's also British, and she will be talking about leadership and conscious leadership. So I had both of these women on my program, and we had a great time talking about crop circles and conscious leadership and how to shift realities and all kinds of things. So that was this last show. So again, all of these shows are part and parcel of what I believe these times are calling for. They're calling us forward into living a bigger life. They're calling us forward into up-leveling our energy. They're calling us forward to have new eyes, if you will. One of the things I'm going to be doing over my break after season 1 completes today and I begin season 2, probably end of August, 1st of September, is going to be asking for your feedback. In other words, am I adding to the noise out there? Because I do not want to add to the noise. There is so much noise in our lives right now. I'm hoping that Wisdom School TV is set apart from the noise. It's a place you can come so you can hear a new perspective. You can be inspired. Perhaps you can be touched in a certain way. Perhaps you can even get a hit of uplifting energy for yourself and get clear on a way that you want to hold yourself and these times inside of you. Because quite honestly, we all have choices in that. We have big choices. So I'm going to be asking for your feedback, and I'm really hoping that you will share your feedback with me, because this is going to help really inform me over the next several months of what I want to do with season 2. Are there guests you'd like to hear from? Are there topics that you'd like presented and talked about? Are there particular programs that you would really be interested in? This is something I hope you'll share with me. So I think what I'd like to do right now is just enter my email address. It's kind of hard to do here without my glasses on. Yep, I did it. rskeele@gmail.com. If you already have some feedback for me, please send me an email, either during this program or after it, and let me know what you think. If you are this is the first time for Wisdom School TV, either live or archived, you have lots of programs to watch and enjoy. And if you are a seasoned subscriber, that I see many people are right now on the chat, love to hear from you. Love to hear, Mary, you've been on many of the shows, and Kit, hello, Patricia from Corrales, New Mexico, and Helen as well. So I'd love to hear from all of you as to how I'm doing and help form my next season. Okay, well, now let's move into today's show. Just setting my little green things here so I can play you this interview. This is actually recorded. One of the things about having guests on is sometimes you have to record interviews when they are available. So I did this interview a couple of weeks ago. I already know that you're going to love it. But let me tell you about Jean Houston. And her bio is just so extraordinary. that I'm just going to read it to you because, quite honestly, I can't do it justice any other way. We are going to be talking, by the way, about her new book. This is her new book, The Wizard of Us, Transformational Lessons from Oz. And I have to say, I really love this book. First of all, who doesn't love The Wizard of Oz? And then who doesn't love Jean Houston? And then to put those two together, it was like, wow, a no-brainer. There's so much wonderful information in here. Of course, her perspective you're going to hear about during the interview. Her wisdom as she takes apart this wonderful child's fairy tale, fantasy, movie that's beloved and really up-levels it for us all. But she also talks about a lot of the background to the movie, the author, how it was written. It's, of course, very complete in all of what she brings forward. And just to let you know, the book is available right now in your bookstores and, of course, online. Jean Houston. She is a visionary thinker, a teacher, a philosopher who pioneered the human potential movement during the late 70s and developed the social artistry leadership model used by the United Nations. Over the course of her work, Houston has developed a worldwide network of social leaders, educators, and philosophers, such as Aldous Huxley, Joseph Campbell, Carl Jung, Helen Keller, Margaret Mead. By the way, she knew all these people personally, which gave her a very unique insight into the human potential. Houston reaches millions of people throughout the year via her teleseminars, lectures, and symposiums, and according to Evolving Wisdom, the author is the single most successful teleseminar giver, except for Oprah. That's a lot of people. Houston has worked with UNICEF, the United Nations, NASA, and others, and she's written over 26 books in her spare time. So it was quite a privilege and honor to have her on Wisdom School TV. So sit back, relax, have a wonderful time watching this interview. I am going to be on the chat. I'll be entering, just some, jewels that jump out at me. I welcome you to do the same, and we can have an ongoing conversation during this interview. So here you go. Welcome to Wisdom School TV, Jean Houston. Hello, hello.
Hello there, Rebecca.
I cannot say how delighted I am to have you as my season 1 finale guest here. And I just am thrilled. So let's just jump right in. I know people know who you are. I've just given a bio. If someone doesn't know who you are, I'm really, really surprised, since I consider you a real icon of our time, a Renaissance woman. And and I know you probably get this a lot. I'll stop gushing now. I want to start off, though, with a personal question, because before we get into talking about your latest book, do you consider, you speak about mythic living a mythic life. I've been following your work since 1990, when I first found In Search of the Beloved and started reading it and just going, oh my God, this is wonderful. Do you feel like you live a mythic life? And if so, what does that feel like? What is your experience of that?
Well, I feel that I'm in tune with my, let's say, my archetypal realities. It's essentially, it's a spiritual life. The mythic life is a kind of download from the spiritual life, in that you try to stay in touch with the currents, not just of the time, but the current of great time, of great space. We don't just live in the universe lives in us. And when you live out of that, then all kinds of things happen. Now, because I'm a scholar of mythic structures and archetypal structures, I may have looked at it within that lens, but really what it is a spiritual life in overalls. You're out there doing the work that needs to be done. You deeply trust that you're part of a greater story, and above all, you trust that what you are doing can, in large and small ways, make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happens as a result of this is just as in great story, all kinds of coincidences show up, the right person, the right time. I sometimes feel like a female version of Forrest Gump. Remember in Forrest Gump, it's always present at the time when all these major things happen. And this has been so in my life. I've known some of the great, great, great people, known and unknown, of the 20th and 21st century.
Yes.
One I ran into when I was 14 years old, Teilhard de Chardin, and knocked him down, and then proceeded to walk with him off and on in Central Park for the next 3 years. Margaret Mead, I was the adopted daughter of Margaret Mead. I have a wonderful mother. She has a wonderful daughter, but that was our relationship. And it just goes on and on and on, whether it was Jonas Salk or Buckminster Fuller, whose last design house I live in. I mean, and then being given opportunities all over the world. I've worked in 108 countries,
Mm-hmm.
and both for the United Nations, the Institute of Cultural Affairs, many, many other organizations, helping to develop what I call social artistry, human development in the light of social change, because
Yes.
too many leaders have been trained to be white males of the year 1926. They've not been trained for the present circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
So whether I'm working with a head of state or a major leader or the man who pushes the broom in his leper colony in Madras, it's all of a piece to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the mythic life, all these strands, all these opportunities tend to truly come together in a vast new tapestry that is giving us a world that is larger than our aspiration and more complex than all our dreams. Now, there are great disadvantages to the mythic life. You're on the road a lot. I work at least a 16 to 18-hour day. Because one is answering calls and putting together projects, ideas, people all the time.
Right.
So it is and especially with the new technologies, this has just increased it. Before you had time to write a letter, now everything is instantaneous. So going the instantaneous way really is another order of reality entirely.
Yes, it is. I have to go back to one of the things you first said, and that is the universe is within us. I so resonate with that. Being a person whose mission is to co-create heaven on earth this lifetime, I just say yes, yes, yes. How many times have I said that and want to live that and want to express that? And I love that you are one of those pioneers, those lights ahead of me going, this way, this way. It's great. It's great. Well, we are here to talk about everything that you just mentioned, including The Wizard of Oz, which is your recent book, Transformational Lessons from Oz. I have read the book several times, actually, in preparation for this interview. And I want to say that I love that you took a childhood fantasy dream place like Oz and matured it up into mythic living, mythic life, and that we embody and we can embody all of what Oz is and the wizard in all of us. So would you share, why don't we start off by having you just say, why do you think The Wizard of Oz is so important at this time?
Well, first of all, it is the great American story. It's an iconic story, but it's also a story that seems to have very interesting resonances with what is happening today. I mean, Dorothy discovers that she lives in an outmoded situation. Nobody listens to her. Remember, she goes up, Auntie M, but she has something really critical to say about Miss Gulch going to destroy her little dog. Please, Miss Auntie M, go away, Dorothy. Can't you see we're counting our chickens? Why don't you go to some place where you don't get in people's way? And where is that place? Mm-hmm. And there, of course, is the state that so many of us feel that we're all dressed up with no place to go. We live, we have the animating life force, but there is a kind of grayness. There's a kind of shutdown in the reality. Things don't seem to be happening. Please, please, where can I go? I mean, the reason that you have this wisdom school is to reach people who really feel ready to go, but not sure where. What is it's like the universe itself is saying it's time to wake up now. We're in a new renaissance of new possibilities, and yet we still seem to be living in serial monotony and same old, like Dorothy.
Mm-hmm.
So it then takes that great, huge yearning, which, of course, in the movie version is there in that tremendous song, somewhere over the rainbow, over the old reality. There is a larger, a deeper reality. How do I get there?
Mm-hmm.
But then it takes what? It takes a big kick in the pants. It takes
Mm-hmm.
a tornado.
Yes.
And so many people have tornadoes in their life of one form or the other, don't they?
Yes.
Sure you reach this with your students all the time, whether it's a tornado of divorce or of illness or of loss of job or of just loss of one's own self-esteem or.
Mm-hmm.
But those tornadoes are coming thick and fast. And one of the reasons they come so thick and fast is because we're living in a time of incredible acceleration. I mean, most of us live somewhere between what? 4 to 10 to some cases even 100 times the amount of sheer experience compared to our ancestors of
Mm-hmm.
100, 150 years ago. And that's why we get so full of holes and get wounded. People sometimes so full of holes they get holy. So then she arrives through this tornado, and that tremendous scene, she leaves the black and white, straight up and down world into this world of effulgent shapes and turnings and flowers and colors. And so this gives me the opportunity to say, well, look, if you're going to live the larger life, you better increase your inner and outer perceptions, yes?
Mm-hmm.
And so we give exercises in the book to really increase one's sensory acuity, both the outward sensory acuity as well as the inward one,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can see, taste, smell, feel, hear, be internal images. Because in my studies of 55 of some of the most creative people in North America, high sustained creativity, invariably they were imagizers. They were archaeologists of their own mind. They were spelunkers in the caves of their own creativity. They could drop in an idea, and the internal imagery would then constellate around it and give them the rest of the story or the rest of the solution.
Mm.
So we have to prepare ourselves for the world of Oz, meaning the collective unconscious of the human race.
Mm-hmm.
And so it goes through, whether I then deal with what is Glinda. Glinda is the archetype of higher guidance, what I call the entelechy. Mm-hmm. It's the entelechy of an acorn to be an oak tree. It's the entelechy, the higher purpose of a little baby to be a grown-up human being, among many other things. But it's the entelechy of you and me to be God knows what. Mm-hmm. And we do have, and I have found this in my work with thousands of people all over the world, we do have higher guidance. We do have access to an essential self, a higher self. And Glinda, of course, within the fairy tale context, is the representative of that, you see.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Then you are placed on the road of spiritual pollen. The Yellow Brick Road is not simply something that showed up in a movie. Mm-hmm. It is actually, or in a book, it actually is a metaphor, a symbolic structure that you find literally all over the world. The road of adventure, the road of the unfolding of the soul's purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And
and as you're speaking here, I just am struck with how much courage, when you talk about the tornadoes in life, if I could maybe circle back around to that for a moment, there are so many structures, would you agree, in our life today that are crumbling? I mean, I hear it every day. People are saying, what is going on? And yet what you're speaking of, when you talk about plugging into that greater mythic journey that we're on, to me, it's what is going on. And yet to make that shift, to take that journey from, my world and this used to work and it doesn't work anymore, or I used to be this and now I'm not, or I used to be employed and now I'm not, or whatever. There's a line here that I love when in your chapter on courage, and you said it is very difficult to imagine the kind of intestinal fortitude it would take to stop quivering in those ruby slippers in order to take even the first step along the path of yellow bricks. Could you talk
Yes.
about courage?
Well, courage is a it's an agreement with the universe in a funny way. It's an agreement with the universe to carry on. Even though you're quivering in your boots, in your ruby slippers, you do take a stand. I mean, just like the lion, the cowardly lion takes a stand. He proves to have the most courage of all. He leaps over abysses. He goes into dark castles. He saves his friends. Now, he may be scared all the time, but by God, he does it. This might interest you. Many, many, many years ago, I had the great opportunity of being backstage with Sir Laurence Olivier, England's greatest actor, when he was about to go on to play one of his greatest roles, Richard III. And he was a mess. He was so frightened. They don't know that I'm just bloody awful. They don't know that I'm complete fake. I can't do it. I can't. And he was just a mess. And then the man said, the stage manager, 10 seconds, Sir Laurence, and pushed him on the stage. And he comes on with the humpback, saying, and now is the winter of our discontent, made glorious summer by this sound, the son of York. I mean, he was phenomenal. But he seemed to need that huge inner scare, and fear to get on with it. So courage really has very little to do with fearlessness. I mean, I know some very stupid people who are completely fearless and they get themselves in all kinds of scapes but courage is really a moral situation rather than a psychological, than the usual, the way we think of it. It is standing up for something, realizing even though you may feel some very dark, fearsome thoughts about it, you go ahead with it. You go ahead. I mean, that's what it takes.
Yes.
It takes Julia Butterfly Hill, 83 feet up in the great tree, and refusing to come down until the people who were going to chop it down went away. That's
yes. And I also love that you talk about the quivering, because courage, it doesn't always look so strong and for sure, I know what I'm doing. A lot of times we're quaking in our boots as we take that step. And I think there's so many people at that point right now, would you agree, that are they really are, we're in unsteady times because foundations that we were standing on have been torn asunder, if you will.
Yes.
And yet we embark, like Dorothy, on this, and her friends, and who she meets along the way. So would you like to talk more about this heroine's journey that she goes on with, and where it takes her?
Well, this is a heroine's journey. It has a lot of the same structures within it as the hero's journey. And Joseph Campbell and I used to talk endlessly about this, about the difference between the heroine and the hero's journey. He wasn't too sure about the heroine's journey. But you feel the call. You feel the call. That's the same as with the hero's journey. You live in an outmoded situation. You may even refuse the call. Everything tries to stop you, even yourself. But by God, you get on with it, and you continue. Then the allies show up. Yes, that's one of the big things. Who shows up? Glinda shows up. Who else shows up? Disenfranchised parts of yourself. Now, the difference between the hero and heroine's journey at this point is the heroine is very helpful to the teammates. And she gets them, as she polishes them up, she gets them off the hook, the scarecrow. She oils up the Tin Man. She gives real empowerment to the lion. And this is a woman's way, you see, the empowering of the team. Whereas in the classical hero's journey, he's just out there slashing away, doing his thing. So that's very different. She's very caring about that they're okay, that they that they have a sufficiency of togetherness, of energy. She's very deeply available to their hearts, to their minds, to their yearnings. Heroine's journey You don't find that in the hero's journey.
Mm.
Um, and then, of course, when they actually, stand together against the Wicked Witch, the very fact that she is there empowering her teammates to really be steady, to go forth, to not give up, whereas in the hero's journey, tends to be a very lonely journey
Mm.
of, of their own unique flight,
Mm-hmm.
so that's a very big part of it.
Yes.
In the book, well, of course, what I do is I try to give people a sense of their larger mind, their larger intelligence, um, in a sort of feminine way, to the scarecrow. We empower their heartfulness, their empathy, their ability to cross the great divide of otherness with the Tin Man, and then, of course, many, many different exercises to activate one's own sense of courage and taking a stand.
Mm-hmm. At the end of every chapter, you have a process of some kind. And
Yes.
in true Jean Houston style, you use all of the senses, the imagination, which is one of the things that drew me to your work so many years ago. And as you've mentioned, is really what this whole journey, that it's part and parcel of what we need to do. Don't you agree? To really access the greaterness of who we are, in all of the different characters, and also bring home the ones that have been disenfranchised. And what you do in the book that I love is you flesh out the characters, so that as I'm reading about the Scarecrow or the Tin Man, I'm all of a sudden seeing them as part of me. I'm going, ah, I see that. Oh, okay. You reflect it back to us. I really love that. And you also you give anecdotal material all through the book, which I also liked. Talked
Mm-hmm.
about the characters and the writer of the book and the actors at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was, I'm sure that was that part of your research in putting this book together, or is that something that you really wanted to bring forward for us as well?
Well, it is such a rich film, and it had so many levels and layers to it. Um, the characters, as they played them, were really pretty close to the characters' own psychology. Uh, the I think that the more background that you can give, the more layers that you could give to a reader, the more it becomes richer in their own unique firmament, and the more they feel themselves closer to not just the wishes of the characters in the book or the movie, but into their own wishes as they grow their minds, as they grow their hearts, as they expand their courage. So that's why I tried to add as much color as I can. By the
Mm-hmm.
way, people who were close to Frank Bound wrote to me.
Hmm.
One was Frank Bound's niece. I'm not his niece. Frank Bound's great granddaughter, who wrote to me and she told me something fascinating that I don't think people know. It came as a download. The whole story
Oh,
came as
wow.
a boom. It was just there, and then he had to piece it out. But
Mm-hmm.
it was there suddenly, and as he himself wrote about it, he said, "I put my pencil in my hand, and it just wrote itself." you
Mm-hmm.
know, it was like a kind of given. It had a so profound was its archetypal status. It was already there in the deep world.
Mm-hmm.
But the same thing happened with J.R. Rowling when she did the Harry Potter. She was on a train, I think, to Manchester, and
Mm-hmm.
shoom, it was all there. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Joseph Campbell, when he did his extraordinary books on creative mythology and Oriental mythology, the great series, it all happened within 20 minutes.
Mm.
He said. Of
Wow.
course, it took years to write it out, but
Yes.
it gives us the sense that our creative unconscious gestates on a theme in a certain way, and then suddenly, out of the blue, it is as if it's already composed. I mean, Mozart wrote about this. He said that he would visit, essentially what he was talking about was the realm of music, and the whole piece, the whole symphony was there. He said, zusammen, all at once. And then I get back and I write it down because it's all there, and it's like chum. And then you look at his music pages, and it's like fly speck because he's writing so fast because he's got the whole symphony. you know. And this is something that we've been able to show people how to do, actually. I've had people download whole books, and symphonies and artistic pieces. But it assumes that you also have the skill to carry it out.
Sure, sure. Interesting. Could we talk about transformation?
Sure.
We've, of course, we meet all the characters. We're off on the yellow brick road, and yet there is quite a transformation that happens in the story that is theme in your book. You talk about transformation requires energy and commitment. It's not always easy. Many people give up. Certainly in the story of The Wizard of Oz, there were many opportunities to give up. What Talk to us about what happens in the course of the mythic heroine's journey with these characters.
Well, of course, there's a big give up scene, and that is when the witch has them in the field of poppies, and the ones that are flesh and blood, meaning the lion and Dorothy, fall asleep, and the Tin Man and the Scarecrow are trying to wake them up. But to me, that was very significant. They were near the goal; they could actually see the Emerald City, and they fall asleep.
Yes.
And that is true of so many of us, that when we get fairly near a goal, suddenly we go deviation, or we say, well, not now, maybe next year, or whatever happens, we divert ourselves from the transformational experience, one that will profoundly make a difference. And this seems to be part of what I call entelechy. Entelechy versus entropy. Entelechy is the great purposeful energy that allows us to have the strength, the fortitude to carry on. Entropy is that which contains us, constrains us, and tries to stop us. We have to hone our pluck, our cunning, our stick to itness to get through. And so entropy situations like falling asleep at the wrong moment when you're within the grasp of what will be there as your transforming experience. And I think this just comes with the territory of being human. That it's as if the old ways saying, no, no, go to sleep, go to sleep. No, you don't
Yes.
want to do it.
Yes.
Because if you carry on, it means that we're finished. The little old ego, the old modality. We're finished. We've been so good to you. We've been your great friends. Don't go. And of course, we've experienced that with friends that we may have in some way outgrown. We love them, but we cannot stay where they are. You see. And how many of us have had that as a tragic situation?
Yes.
And partnerships of all kind. I mean, the forms of entropy are very devious and very large. So that is a big one. But when you get beyond entropy, and you agree to your soul's purpose, your soul's code, your entelechy, then synchronicities happen, opportunities come your way. You have stopped boring God.
I love that. You put that in the book. That's great.
Yeah. And you get on with it, and all kinds of allies come up to meet you, the higher allies, the supernatural allies in the hero heroine's journey.
And then, of course, you reach Oz and knock on the door, and the wizard sends you on this incredible, okay, if you want what you want, you have to go steal the broom from the witch. I mean, it's like, I have to do what?
Yeah,
that
I have
is,
to do what?
yeah, that is to me, I think one of the points where, I mean, I think I could probably get past the poppies. I could say, okay, I'm going to sleep. Let's get back on course here. But go get the broom from the witch. That's where I would just go, oh my God. Could you talk a bit about that part of the book and what you wrote about?
About the oh my God part?
Yes, about the oh my God part.
Well, again, she has a team. And so it's not a lonely thing. And they may all have very great doubts, but by God, they are there in transformational friendship with each other. And so, and then, of course, one of the most beautiful parts is when they actually get into the Emerald City. And it is a magnificence. They are accepted. Here you have a little white girl a man made out of straw, a man made out of tin, and a lion. Now, what kind of diverse population is that?
Yeah.
And yet totally accepted. So that tells us something about the possible society, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yes,
That
it does.
it's extraordinary, international type of culture, intercultural culture. And then, of course, they are released from the old stuff, the wash up and brush up society. They are released from their old forms, their old structures, the old things that were holding them back. They are cleaned up, you see. Then they are entering into a society of laughter, of fun, of games, of playfulness. This tells us a lot about, what an optimal society might be, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And then when they finally get to the wizard, he gives them an impossible task. But they've been prepared. They've been accepted. They've been washed and cleaned. They have been filled with hilarity and high spirits. And so they are ready, you see.
Yes.
So they don't go in dread and trembling. They are given a sacerdotal scene where it looks like a great sacrament with great heads and all kinds of fires and things. So they are given the illusion of power that actually the wizard does not have. It is illusion because the wizard is trying to evoke their own power, you see.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they finally are in this impossible journey going into the witch's castle, which is filled with all kinds of onerous and scary things. I mean, I wonder those wonderful soldiers dressed like the old Russians, oh, we, oh, yo, but they climb the mountains. They get in there. They are able finally. I mean, to find Dorothy because the little dog who is always the deeper business of it. He's the energizing. He's the great messenger. He's Hermes, back and forth. Funny, I once had a very energized little dog called Hermes. So he's the little messenger god. And he is the one who activates the togetherness so that when she is about to be killed because the hourglass has gone the other direction and the sand is running out, those great lines, my favorite lines are actually, run, Toto, run.
Yes.
Run, Hermes, run, Athena, do what you have to do. Get my team back together.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they come back together. How many people need a team?
Yes.
And growing, teaching, learning community. Run, Toto, to run. And to really bring together loving, co-creative people who are growing together, who are nourishing, affirming, evoking each other, not a psychotherapeutic community, that's something very different, but a teaching, learning community that then, because that's what they are, teaching, learning community, that then can, in fact, get the broom. And the broom happens because of compassion, because the witch has lit the broom to fire up the scarecrow. And what does Dorothy do? She takes the water of compassion, hurls it on, and of course some of it then goes onto the witch, who cannot take the clarifying, cleansing water. Oh, who would have thought that such a little girl would have just killed off my beautiful wickedness, and she melts away, screeching all the way. That's why I say, what is the water of life that you, friends who are reading this book, can bring to dusty structures, outmoded structures, be it health, education, community, whatever? And then I talk about social artistry and give many different examples of how people can do these things.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Let's talk a little bit about Ozifying your life. I love the way you make up words in your books. I love that. Ozified your life, turning your life into Oz. This is one of my very favorite chapters in the book, where at the end of the book, where you talk about what this could look like, the Renaissance of our time, what we are called to do, how we are called to step forward into this time, why we are born at this time, all of that, which I love, which I say a lot, and love that it's right here. So would you talk about what we are called to do in your words? You say it so eloquently.
Well, give me back a paragraph that you particularly liked, and let me just
Sure.
comment on that.
Okay, let me because I checked several. So let me why
Yeah.
now in all of human history? Why am I here now? The answer is that you are here now because you are needed more than ever. You specifically bringing all your unique perspectives, gifts, experiences. You are called. You are here because of the 13.7 billion years experiment that has resulted in your life could readily come to an end within the next. You are present at the birth of an opportunity that exceeds your imagination. And then you quote Christopher Fry. Thank God our time is now. When
So,
wrong comes up to meet us everywhere, never to leave us till we take the longest stride of soul we ever took.
that's right. We are living in the great times, what I've called in another book of mine, jump time. We're living in the most critical time in human history. Other times thought they were it. They're wrong. This is it. We have come out of an outmoded situation into essentially another reality for which most people are not prepared. A great deal of my life, Rebecca, is about preparing people for this time. You see, my schools, whether it was my old mystery school or my social artistry programs or the summer programs I do all over the world constantly, I might add, it seems, are about how we actually are able to activate the latent capacities that we all contain to be able to carry us into the deeper ventures of the dark forests of our present life, the challenges that hitherto were never known before, at least not known democratically across vast terrains and great cultures of people. The whole world is taking a walk with itself. The world mind is part of our everyday reality. But we've not been trained for that. And technology alone is not going to do it. I mean, I work at some very interesting levels, and they all seem to think technology is the way, and they're wrong. Because if it does not happen from inside out, it's not going to happen. I've been in too many situations watching people affix their signatures to great documents and nothing happens.
Yeah.
Because the inner life has not been turned, the activation of the potentials we need, the brilliance of the Wizard of Oz, which I try to show in my book, The Wizard of Oz. It's about the activation of the potentials, then given sufficient energy and opportunity and adventure to explore these potentials, and then the great resolution, which is a renaissance of self and society.
Yes. There's a line in here that I love. I invite you to increase your spiritual income so that you have the wherewithal for the ethical and creative expenditures necessary for a renaissance of spirit. How do we increase our spiritual income, Jean?
Well, first of all, you have to know that the income is vast. It's there. It's a treasure house. You do it in the increasing of body, mind, and spirit. What I try to do in this book is give you ways of increasing your physical and sensory capacities, your psychological depth, your innate genius, your intelligences, your story, your sense of your story. And then you have the wherewithal, you have the hooks and eyes to receive the universe, to receive the spiritual structures that are there. When Jesus talks about the treasures in heaven, I mean, he's not kidding. The treasures in heaven are the spiritual income. To have a spiritual practice, I don't talk about that too much there, but a spiritual practice that is a daily practice taken at a particular time where you deepen into the sheer gorgeous suchness of being that is there for all of us. So very, very critical.
Yes.
I think that we are experiencing in our time, I won't say a revolution, but certainly an evolution in our own spirituality. The very fact that we understand through the new quantum physics the difference between our own reality and the non-dual reality, the sheer beingness, the gorgeousness of beingness itself, and that we, having the universe within us, have access to this beingness. Both reasons, both metaphysical and very, very physical.
Yes. Well, for me, it is the only thing that is the source of everything that you've talked about. I mean,
Yes.
and I know you've said it in so many beautiful ways, but it is really the depth of connection that really sources all to me.
Well, the source is that which is there. I mean, the final words of Christopher Fry in that poem that you quoted. Thank God our time is now when wrong comes up to meet us every place,
Mm-hmm.
never to leave us till we take the longest stride of soul folk ever took. Affairs are now soul sized.
Yes.
The enterprise is exploration into God. And then the great lines, what are you making for? It takes so many thousand years to wake, but will you wake for pity's sake?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
That's what my whole life work is about.
Yes. I get that.
Waking.
I do. I get that. And then you have this great process at the end of the book called the manifestation plan. And I have to say that it just step by step, if someone were to follow this, it's like each brick of the yellow brick road. Would you like to talk about the manifestation plan?
Well, let me just call it up myself in
Okay.
my
Wonderful. Or I could read it to
Elizabeth.
you, whatever works.
Yeah, why don't you? That'd be more interesting that way. Why don't
Yeah.
you read me the first one and then I'll comment on each part.
Okay. A is for altar. B is for blessing. C is for
No,
call
that's
out.
not. So, altar is to have a sacred space and time where you really give yourself over to the larger life within you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether it can be done with pictures, whether it is done with holy things or things that are important to you, however you want to do it. The point of it is that it has a phenomenal possibility for you. So that's why it's so very, 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 very important.
B is for blessing.
The blessing way is perhaps one of the finest of all ways of being. I know of nothing better than when you, in point of fact, are there um, giving the best of yourself to, to life in appreciation. It's the practice of gratitude that is so very important. Is the practice of gratitude.
C is for call out.
Well, that means really state your desire. State, I think I said, your gratitude for the past and
Mm-hmm.
your commitment to where you're going to go.
Yes. Yes.
And that's where you create something symbolically that represents your intention, that which you want to create, and you put it on the altar. Whether it's a prayer, whether it's something that you have crafted, but it is something that states to the universe, I am here, I am ready, send me. I'm ready to do the work in co-creation with God, what the Buddhists refer to as the interdependent co-arising.
D is for dedicated discernment. You talked about mentors.
Yeah, having good mentors, having people who can evoke your highest form, working with your entelechy so that your entelechy, your higher guidance, is helping you. You are in co-creation. I talked also about, asking help wherever, however, but especially from the great source within you to remove the blocks, to remove the impediments, and to be willing every day to do conscious work in changing your attitudes and holding on to a belief that you are in a co-creative universe where you are gaining the mastery of the art and science of manifestation, making things happen.
One of the things you talk about in the book is that we must know that we are supported. We must know that this universe works for us. Those are going to be my words
Yes.
on what you said.
Yes.
I think that's so key. So key.
Yeah.
E is for envision and enact. You talk about rich inner imagery.
Yes, inner imagery, where you enact it, where you actually not just picture, but you dramatize. You play it out with good music in the background, what it is that you wish to achieve. You touch it, you taste it, you see it, you smell it, you enact it, you engage all your inner and outer powers, and that then creates what I call the bringing together of a great twist and turnings an integration and weave of your possibilities into what I call a probability wave.
Mm-hmm.
So things tend to happen. When I have studied some of the great manifestors of our time, I discovered that they're all doing something like this.
Yes. Yes. And that for me is just key. I love that about your work, and I love about that you continue to talk about that. F is for focusing, fuel for the fire, and for friends. You talk about joining together with others.
Oh yes, yeah. Again, that's the that's the ongoing teaching learning society,
Mm-hmm.
where you really go together. You empower, you evoke each other. I mean, it's mutual evocation. And knowing that the fires of life, you may be very fired up one day, and the next month you may be down to just dim embers. But that's why you need people to help blow on the fires within, because you are lit within, but you need affirmation being called forth as well as calling forth each other,
Mm.
so that the fires can keep flying up more and more.
Yes.
So one of the things I said is place notes with your friends' goals on your altars alongside yours.
Yes, yes, that's great tips for anyone. G is for getting going gracefully, knowing it's really about the journey. I mean, The Wizard of Oz is obviously all about the journey, not the destination. So, tapping into all of that, the left and right brain.
Yes. Well, using all of your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, using not just being thinking in images or thinking in words, but to really think with your whole mind, body as much as you can
Mm-hmm.
about things. And that then allows for the graceful form. I think it's also believing in grace, something that I call to live in a state of expectant grace.
Mm.
And that tends to make things happen. I remember once when I said to Margaret Mead, because she was the luckiest person I ever saw, luck just sort of clumped around her. I just followed through. I said, boy, I've never seen anybody so lucky. She says, yes, I am blessed. And I said, well, why are you so blessed? She says, because I expect to be. And really lived with that.
Wow. Wonderful. H is for homework, and hang in there.
Well, you keep on learning.
Mm-hmm. I think
You
that
keep on learning. You keep on, and you keep a record of your learnings, and you keep a journal. This is very important. But a journal that is a sort of a thick little notebook. Margaret always carried these thick little red notebooks. So anything that happens that's interesting, keep it in your pocket or your purse. You whip it out. You say, oh, look at that bird's wing, and you draw it. Oh, listen to that joke. Wow, I never saw the light quite that way. Oh, isn't that fascinating what he just said? You write it down.
wow.
And then at the end of the day, by golly, you review your day. And the end of the month, you review everything. That way you are harvesting your life.
Mm. Oh, that's
Also, always learn something new. I'm trying to learn Chinese now because I'm off to China next week.
wow. Wow. That's just really wonderful.
Yeah.
I is for intensity, and you gave a story about a wise woman, about the purpose of ancient tradition, of the adolescent initiation for girls, and how important those experiences are for us. They stay in our
Yes.
blood, you know?
They do indeed. I mean, what do you suppose belly dancing was about? It was preparing the body to give birth.
Well, I had never thought about that, but I guess it was. Yeah. Yeah. And J is for joy and jokes and just letting go.
Well, I'm the daughter of a comedian. I don't know if you did know that.
I didn't.
My father is the guy who wrote the joke, "Who's on first?" Although, frankly, I think it was he and two Jewish guys when you look at the Talmudic nature of that joke. But I grew up in laughter and humor. And I find that the sense of joy and the laughter just releases so much old stuff and gives you the unexpected universe. That's why the smartest people I've ever known have been comedians, because they're always bringing together hitherto divided and distinguished worlds and making things full of juice and laughter.
K is for keeping conscious while you keep on keeping on.
Yes, I mean, you really stay give yourself sacred time and space every day. If it's 5 minutes, makes no difference, but at least it is there, you see. And also be conscious of your actions, how each action has, I think I referred to it as a ripple effect that goes out, out into the world.
Yes, you do.
Before you're going to yell at somebody, you say, now, is what I'm about to say really going to add to the beauty and joy of the universe? Or is it going to cause a deviancy? So it's very important.
L is for lightness, love, and lingering laughter.
That's right.
Yep.
That's where
Yes.
you really, you generate more love, you generate more lightness, you generate new ideas.
And
that's really what it's about.
And that's who we are. We are generators of those things.
We are the generators, the generatrix, yes.
Yes.
Very much so.
And then M is the mind of God made manifest. So
That's
beautiful.
what it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything that you would like to leave us with? I'm sort of coming to the end of the questions I prepared and our time, and anything that you'd like to say in closing?
I think the important thing to say is that we are living in the critical time of human history, and that we can be very confused in this time, and that's why we need our deeper friends, the deeper friendship of our higher mind, the deeper friendship of our deep loving heart, the friendship of our courage, and that the Emerald City is within us. The Oz is us. We are not encapsulated bags of skin dragging around dreary little egos. We are symbiotic with reality as a whole. The wizard is us.
Thank you so much for your generous spirit, for being who you are, and for this interview.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was the interview with Jean Houston. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly loved going back and listening to it once again. She is just so verbose, and eloquent when it comes to talking about these times. So for me, it was a wonderful way to complete season 1 of the Wisdom School TV. She, by the way, asked me a lot about the Wisdom School. We had a really nice conversation about that prior to the interview. And wow, what a being. Just very glad she's on the planet. So thank you so much for being with me during this interview. I know it was a little bit longer than an hour, but thanks for holding in there. And thank you for being on the last show of the season 1. Yes. Kit says, Rebecca, breathtaking. She is one of my favorite people on the planet, and you did a masterful job of interviewing her. So much great gratitude coming your way from me. You are welcome, Kit. It was quite a honor for me. So if you are on my mailing list, which I know all of you are, please, again, I invite you to share what has been important to you about Wisdom School TV, what has impacted you, if anything, and also what you would like to see season 2 be about. I am open to all suggestions. So until season 2, have a lovely summer. Keep on keeping on, as she says. If you want some real inspiration during the summer, you might want to get her book. And until next time, bye. Thank you, Mary. Have a wonderful summer as well up in Iowa. Actually, I think I'm going to make sure I get this copied before I say goodbye. There we go. Bye-bye, everyone.